high above an endless stretch of dense green jungle. A passenger airplane moved smoothly through the sky, its engines humming steadily as sunlight filtered through scattered clouds. Inside the cabin, soft lights glowed gently, creating a calm and familiar atmosphere. Some passengers slept peacefully with their heads resting against the windows. Others scrolled through their phones or listened to music, while a few gazed down at the vast rainforest below, unaware that this ordinary journey was about to become a terrifying fight for survival that would be remembered forever. Without warning, the aircraft shuddered violently. It was not the usual turbulence that frequent flyers had learned to ignore. This jolt felt different, stronger, almost as if something solid had struck the plane. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Eyes widened, and a tense silence spread through the cabin. A second, more powerful shake followed, sending a ripple of fear through everyone on board. Passengers seated near the windows leaned closer, peering through the glass. And that was when they saw a massive, dark shadow moving unnaturally fast between the clouds above the jungle. A sense of dread settled over the cabin as whispers turned into anxious murmurs. As the aircraft descended slightly, attempting to stabilize, a thunderous impact echoed through the fuselage. The sound was deep and explosive, like metal colliding with immense force. The entire plane trembled. Overhead compartments rattled, and terrified screams filled the air. In the next horrifying moment, the impossible became reality. A gigantic anaconda had slammed into the aircraft. Normu's muscular body was wrapped around part of the wing, thick coils tightening against the metal as its massive scales scraped harshly across the surface, producing a shrill, bone-chilling sound that echoed through the cabin. Oxygen masks dropped from above as emergency alarms blared. Red warning lights flashed, and the calm order of the cabin collapsed into chaos. Some passengers froze in shock, gripping their armrests as if letting go would send them falling into the void below. Others cried out in terror, while children screamed and clung to their parents. Tears streamed down faces as fear took hold, and the reality of the situation sank in something far beyond human control was happening. In the cockpit, warning lights illuminated the control panels as the pilots struggled to understand what they were seeing. Control of the aircraft was becoming increasingly difficult. The plane listed slightly to one side as the added weight and force of the massive creature threw off its balance. Despite the terror pounding in their chests, the pilots forced their voices to remain steady, following training drilled into them over years. They declared an emergency to air traffic control, relaying fragmented reports of severe external damage while desperately trying to keep the aircraft airborne. Inside the cabin, panic manifested in different ways. Some passengers prayed loudly, calling out to God with trembling voices. Others clutched their children tightly, shielding them as if their own bodies could protect them from the nightmare unfolding outside. A few passengers raised their phones with shaking hands, recording the chaos around them, perhaps believing these moments might be their last, and wanting the world to know what had happened if they did not survive. Outside, the giant anaconda tightened its coils even further, as though trying to overpower the roaring metal beast that had intruded into its domain. Its immense strength pressed against the wing, threatening to tear it apart. Yet the freezing air at high altitude, the deafening roar of the engines, and the violent shaking left the creature disoriented. It loosened and tightened its grip unpredictably, each movement sending fresh waves of terror through the plane as it swayed dangerously from side to side. Flight attendants moved through the cabin with remarkable courage. Though fear was clearly etched across their faces, they focused on their duty, securing seatbelts, guiding passengers to use oxygen masks, and shouting instructions over the blaring alarms. They comforted crying children and reassured terrified adults, placing themselves in harm's way to maintain some sense of order amid the chaos. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Every second felt like an eternity as the pilots realized the grim truth: if the Anaconda's grip was not broken soon, the aircraft might not survive. With few options left, they made an incredibly dangerous decision. The plane was forced into a steep descent, engines roaring as speed increased. Passengers felt their stomachs drop as gravity pressed them into their seats. Fear reached its peak as the aircraft plunged. Then suddenly, with all available power, the pilots pulled the nose sharply upward. For a brief, surreal moment, the aircraft felt weightless. Bodies lifted slightly against their restraints, and loose items floated. In that instant, the Anaconda's grip finally weakened. Its massive coils slipped, unable to hold against the sudden shift in forces. With a violent jolt, the enormous body tore free from the wing and vanished below, falling into the endless green depths of the jungle. Silence filled the cabin. For a few heartbeats, no one spoke, cried, or moved. Then reality returned all at once. Sobs broke the silence. Tears of relief streamed down faces. Some passengers laughed hysterically. Others bowed their heads in prayer, and many simply sat in stunned disbelief, realizing they were still alive. Though the aircraft was badly damaged, it was now under control. The pilots stabilized the flight and prepared for an emergency landing. Fuel was dumped, and rescue crews were alerted. Inside the cabin, passengers sat quietly, hearts pounding, but fear had been replaced by fragile hope. When the plane finally touched down safely, emotions overflowed. People stepped onto the ground with trembling legs, some kneeling to kiss the earth, others embracing strangers as if they were lifelong friends. Looking up at the sky, every survivor understood the same truth that, despite all human technology and progress, nature's power remains overwhelming. Some stories sound like legends, impossible to believe. Yet on that day, they became terrifying reality.